So today we are going to write more and more complicated, services. So let me go back to the branch master. So whenever, you can see here, whatever the branch you are on, that will be displayed on Eclipse like this. So now, currently, now I am on the master branch. So now let's see, we'll make more complicated services here. So now, let's say I want to do some more, request mapping, and I'm trying to write a new service, get user details. So I want to get all the details related to the user. Public map string object. So get user details. Now, I am building the data model now. Just like the previous class, nothing special. I'm just creating a model equal to model is my parameter. I'm just mentioning the hash map parameter name as model. So now, I am adding, slowly all the data into model. So just like the earlier, I am adding the first name. Then and model dot put last name. So this is what we learned yesterday. So returning the model, whatever the model that we create. Okay, so now I'm slowly adding my hobbies. So hobbies is a list of hobbies. It's not a single hobby. So now how you can pass a list of hobbies? So to do that, you can use Java list. So I think you all know, familiar with collections. That's why I'm going a little bit faster. I'm saying list of strings. Every hobby is I want to just keep the list of strings as a hobbies. Now I'm giving hobbies equal to new array list. I'm creating a new array list of strings. The array list is of type holding only strings inside the array list. That's the meaning of list of strings. So now on the hobbies and add. These are all the different methods available on array list. So now I'm taking adding values to the array list. There is a method add, and because we are creating a list of string, it will suggest you to add string type in add method. So now here I'm adding watching TV. So like this, you can add any number of hobbies into your list collection. So hobbies dot add. Let's see. Okay, this is repetitive. You can do any number of elements to your collection. Something like that. So now, what did I do? I built a list of hobbies. Now, this is not part of the model. This is separate collection, and the model is a separate collection. Collection of this is a map, and this one hobbies is list. Now to add into model, so model dot code. Now key is hobbies, and the value is, see here, object. So that means you can pass any type of object as a value. In our case, hobbies. I'm adding hobbies. So now it is returning the model. Now the model will contain first name, last name, and also list of hobbies. Now let's see what is the output of this. Okay, let's run. And then, so our service is this one, because that's what, in the controller, that's what we have created with a URL. This is nothing but a relative URL. So here in the URL, if you see, this is an absolute URL, and then we are adding, this is base path, sorry, it's not absolute, this is a base URL, and slash, this one is relative URL. Called together is an absolute URL. Now if I do this one, see that. So it's a JSON structure having first name, last name, hobbies is nothing but, this is a JSON array. JSON array with different strings available inside it. This is how you can add, a list of items into your web service response. Any questions?
No question.
Now.
No question.
I think I misspelled this now. Now let's say this is good. And now I want to add something here, addresses. Address is nothing but list of addresses. Each address is again a JSON object. How we can achieve this? So now here I'm doing list of addresses, and
I think that we can try that tomorrow.
Okay. So like that, you can add any number of, I leave it as a homework for you. Try to create more and more complicated web services with a different, this is simple JSON response, right? You should take any user profile or order management or some example, whatever the example that you like, and try to build very complicated JSON structures.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay? That's something works for you. Now. And the next one is, now you know how to expose a web service. So far you have seen whatever the data I did here is all static data and hard-coded data. So now how we can connect to the database and fetch data from database and expose as a web service. So that means we are not going to hard code any of these values. These values will come from database. How we can achieve that? So you wanted to do, I can leave it here if you want to read more around how you can interact with the database. So when I explain you should be able to understand more, or I can continue, I can give the basic structure, how the database connections are. How do you want to go?
You can actually continue with the basic structure.
Yeah, like you continue, we'll read through that. Yeah.
Okay. So now to do that, I'll go slowly. So now from the controller, I will start creating service layer now. So we'll touch the database a little bit later. Let's see. So from controller, we are going to create a service layer. Service. And now I'm writing an interface in the service layer. So now my service class is service interface is user service. Okay. So here because I'm using an interface, I can hold only definitions in the interface. I cannot write any implementations. So I'm defining a method, return type, map, string, object, and get user details. I think it seems like Ravali left the meeting. Okay, that's fine. So I just defined an interface. I created a new package, service package, and inside the service package, I just created a user service interface. I just added a method definition, get user details. Now, implementation. I need to implement the same class, same interface. I'm creating another package, service.implementation. So all the implementations will go inside the implementations package. This is typical standards that you need to follow when you're working in a real-time projects. So in the implementation, I'm creating a new class, user service implementation. The earlier one is the interface. Now it is an implementation class. Now I am implementing user service. Now, it automatically complains because I have to implement the method definition in user service interface. This is one of the inheritance. So now it is returning null. So what I'm going to do is whatever the controller method that you see here, I'm taking over all of this implementation and moving into service layer. And return model. So now how you can get the implementations in service layer to the controller. To do that, to make this class as a service layer in the Spring, you need to annotate with service. This is a service annotation that should come from our framework. So whenever you have this annotation, this class will by default become a service layer. Now you have a controller layer, you have a service layer. In the controller layer, that's what you did here. That's controller. Automatically, this will become a controller layer, and similarly, this will become a service layer. How do you connect a controller to the service layer? To do that, you can do another annotation, auto-wired annotation. So Spring works based on the dependency injection. So I'll explain you what is dependency injection once I write it. Auto-wire. So I am auto-wiring user service, whatever the interface that I defined, not the implementation, interface. So now here I am auto-wiring the class. So now in the return, I'm saying this return, this dot user service dot whatever the method definition is there, right? Automatically you can say get user details. So now what happens is when you launch the application, Spring will read through all these annotations first and converts your classes and based on these annotations and apply the dependency injection. Meaning, whenever the Spring is boot up the application, what it does is it will identify this as a controller, and also it will identify, oh, this for this ID call this method, for this ID call this method, like that. Spring will internally map all these IDs with the respective services, and also it will see, oh, and auto-wired. Okay, then what it does is it will internally create a user service object and tie that object with the controller. If you don't use auto-wired, what you have to do is here you have to create an object, new service implementation, something like this. You have to manually create the objects. And then something like this, dot get user details. It's a typical core Java concept. This is how you need to do. So by using AutoWire, you don't need to write these additional lines. Automatically, wherever you want in your controller, if you use this parameter, automatically you are getting an instance of user service. That's the purpose of AutoWire. That's called nothing but Spring dependency injection. So it will internally figure out and wire the objects with controller layer. Whatever the service object that you create, something like this, internally it will wire the objects with this user controller. That is nothing but dependency injection. So let's run through this program and see how it works. So now, though you run this same, it should give you the same response. No change. Though you move your data to the service layer, there is no response, and there is no change in the response because we copied the same implementation there. So now, the purpose of service layer, you can implement all your business logic, algorithm, whatever you wanted to do with your respective application business logic. You need to process all the logic in service layer, not in the controller layer. Controller layer is meant for to direct your request to whichever the model, whichever the services. The whole logic will happen at the service layer. So here you can write anything, if, something like that. Once you get from the database object, it's user that first name equals something and add some parameter. Any business logic should go. I mean, we'll eventually write some business logic also once we link with the database. So, any questions so far?
In order for Spring to auto-wire the dependency injection, we have to use @component, right?
You can use @component also. So you can use @component, @service. I mean, there are multiple layers you can configure with AutoWire. Not only, it's not specific for only component.
Okay.
Okay. So now you understood how the service layer works. Now let's get into DAO layer, where you actually interact with the database. Now, just like however you created, I'm creating one more package. So this is for DAO layer. Similarly, the interface, I mean, same concept. So user DAO. Now, again, I'm writing the same thing, just like how. Get user details. And now the implementation will go to the implementation package. So, which goes implements user DAO. So, and then it implement the user DAO implementation. So now, what I'm going to do is I will move the same implementation, whatever you see here, in the service layer. I mean, later on we'll eventually change. So I'm basically slowly navigating you to different layers so that you can understand what is the purpose of different layers. Return mode. Now, so we move the data fetching into DAO layer. So now here I am saying this you need to make repository annotation. So when you make a repository annotation, this class automatically will become a DAO layer. Now, we created the DAO layer. Now let's go back to the, in the service layer, I am doing again auto-wired. You can do auto-wired anywhere. Auto-wired private user DAO. I am auto-wiring DAO layer into this service layer. Now, here, instead of returning this, I'm doing the same, similarly, however I did, the same thing. Get user details. That's it. So now, nothing is changed. I mean, you still get the same response, but we have connected all the dots, controller, service, and DAO layer. Now let's run through this. Okay. No change. So it still works. It's just that we are just artificially created all different layers, controller, service, and DAO layer. Any questions so far?
No question.
Like after creating this service, in that implementing file, like we create constructor to return that service, right?
There is no constructor. I did not create any constructor here, right?
That private user DAO, user DAO.
This is the interface. It's not a constructor. I have created an interface and I auto-wired an interface into the service layer.
Okay.
I did not do, yeah, because this is again a dependency interaction. However, the controller layer will configure service layer. The service layer will configure DAO layer. This is all taken care by Spring. Because these annotations will have the install implementation to create the objects and build the relationship between service layer and DAO layer.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So let's do one thing. I'll stop it here. You practice different layers by creating. I mean, everybody, at least you should create 5 different services. That's the homework for tomorrow. Everybody should create 5 different services with controller, service, and DAO layer. Tomorrow, what I will give you is how this data can be fetched from database. That meaning we need to configure database connections and everything with this application and create a table in the database and insert the data into the table and fetch the data instead of writing like this. So that's what I'm going to explain tomorrow. Any questions?
No question.